For the first time, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti authorized the city to shut off power at a home that violated public health orders. Garcetti says the Hidden Hills house has repeatedly ignored warnings by authorities. LA police officers have visited the home, which reportedly belongs to TikTok star Bryce Hall. It's unclear how long the power will be out. TikTok star. I'm not familiar with his work, but whose work I am familiar with, that's Mike Everett. He's standing by to look at your forecast, Mike.
You know, to me, it's just a clear sign of just how old and out of touch that I am. I'm just like, so how do you make enough money from TikTok to buy a house in the Hollywood Hills? I have no idea how that works. I do have an idea how convection works, and we saw some of it today. We track more of that as we go into the weekend, and I've got some good-ish news as far as that goes. Details when we come back. Welcome back. There's some of that mid-level cloud cover that's been sitting over top of the Coachella Valley today. We did see some blue sky peek through there. Basically what happened is we had some storms that popped up to our west today and down towards the southwest as well. Some of those did fire up as storms, especially over the Cleveland National Forest down towards San Diego and over top of San Jacinto. And then after they collapsed, well, some of that streamed over top of us. Gorgeous shot there. Lots going on in the atmosphere right now. Good-ish news. Let's start with that. That ridge of high pressure that has held the entire West hostage for the better part of the last week or so. Think about that. The excessive heat warning that we have been under kicked in last Friday. Today is Thursday. That is a full 7 days of excessive heat. And of course, much of that causing those fires that we're tracking right now in central and northern California. Over 10,000 lightning strikes. Yeah, that'll do it. Here's what we're looking at. That ridge breaks down. It's getting shoved out of the way by this low pressure system here that's basically parallel with British Columbia right now. It takes it a little bit further off towards the south and east. That takes temperatures as we go down into the weekend. Unfortunately, Genevieve, or what's left of it, will walk up in our direction here. We're not going to get any tropical moisture out of the deal, but what we will get is more of the humidity and more of the cloud cover, and that is going to complicate things this weekend. It'll be cooler, but it'll be much more humid, so it's a bit of a trade-off. There's Genevieve, no longer a hurricane, just becoming a post-tropical low, and will be basically parallel with us by the time we get to Sunday there. And again, some of the remnants will move over top of us. TD14, if you saw Al Roker during Nightly News tonight, he was telling you about that. That has the possibility of becoming a hurricane once it gets into those warm Gulf waters, could be punching Houston as we go into the weekend there. TD13 also has potential to become a hurricane. It's going to go in all the places we don't want it to, including Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and possibly into Florida as a Category 1 storm, and possibly moving into the Gulf as well. It's something we'll be keeping a close eye on over the next 72 hours. Putting Futurecast into motion, there's a lot of moisture moving across the southeast. There is the remnants of Genevieve making its way closer to us. The thing we'll be celebrating tonight, in fact, if you stick your head outside around 10 o'clock tonight, you'll hear a lot of people going, woohoo, as that excessive heat warning is finally allowed to expire. It will last into Friday for the Inland Empire. They are going to continue to stay hot, at least well above thresholds. 109 today, 3 degrees above average. In the overnights, we got it into the upper 80s, so we got that going for us. Currently 103 in Desert Hot Springs, 108 in Coachella. Easterly flow becomes northwest late tonight. It will give us a little bit of ventilation. We'll get it into double digits right around midnight. We'll do our best to get into the 80s again tomorrow morning, and 109 is where we get to in the afternoon in Palm Springs and Indio, 108 in Thousand Palms, 103 in Joshua Tree, and 82 in Big Bear. Okay, so here's the not so good news. As we go into the weekend, dew points go into the 70s. Minimum relative humidity will ride in the mid-20s and lower 30s there. We'll dial that back slightly on Monday and Tuesday. So here's how it works out. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows temperatures cooling right down to the 30-year average on Saturday. Overnights in the low 80s, and then next week it gets hot again, and then it gets hot and muggy again starting Wednesday.
Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny is in a coma in a hospital in Siberia after falling ill from a suspected poisoning. Take a look at this video. That's Navalny crying out in pain on a flight. Officials say it happened after he drank some tea in the airport. Russia's state news agency reports Navalny, a fierce critic of President Vladimir Putin, is in grave condition. And take a look at this picture. Those are Russian police officers posted right outside Navalny's hospital room in Siberia. And this is the moment when Navalny's wife stepped in to prevent those officers from confiscating her husband's personal belongings. Navalny's supporters suspect Putin is behind the sudden illness, but Bill Neely reports now from London.
Россию будущего.
Alexei Navalny, who is Russia's best known and most prominent opposition leader, has been poisoned. That's according to his spokeswoman. He is certainly in a coma, in intensive care, in hospital, on a ventilator, and is fighting for his life. Navalny, who's 44, is probably the biggest thorn in the side of the Kremlin and has been for the best part of a decade. He was on a flight home campaigning for opposition candidates in Siberia when he was taken ill. He was taken off that flight after it made an emergency landing on a gurney, and he is now in hospital, where doctors have not confirmed yet that he has been poisoned. But his spokeswoman says he had nothing to eat or drink on the plane. She says, drank a cup of tea at an airport cafe in Tomsk, and his supporters believe that a toxic substance was added to that tea.
I have no doubt that this was an intentional poisoning by the Russian secret services against Alexei Navalny. I have no doubt that Putin ordered it.
Now, the Kremlin has made no comment on the allegations that Mr. Navalny has been poisoned. His wife is at the hospital but unable to visit him so far. The Kremlin wishing him a speedy recovery. Bill Neely, NBC News, London.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Germany and Spain record their highest daily coronavirus infection rate since April as cases surge across Europe. The WHO says a relaxation of public health measures may be to blame. Several European countries have imposed travel restrictions and mask-wearing orders to prevent the spread of the virus. Italy and France are also seeing surges. China says this widely reported Wuhan pool party shows how the whole country has achieved a strategic victory in its fight against the virus. While COVID-19 was first reported in Wuhan, strict lockdown measures earlier this year have kept its spread in check. China reported its fourth straight day of zero locally transmitted coronavirus infections. Dr. Anthony Fauci is recovering from surgery. Fauci is the nation's top infectious disease expert, disseminating information during the coronavirus pandemic. He underwent a procedure this morning to remove a polyp from his vocal cord. Fauci is now at home resting. Typical recovery from the procedure is about 3 to 5 days with no talking, followed by a few weeks of limited talking. The president is hoping the Supreme Court will put in place some new rules for Twitter. We'll hear the Trump administration's argument about tweets directed at the president. That's coming up. And an Apple engineer says he worked on a top secret product for the U.S. government. But what he thinks it was used for is later tonight. The White House declares teachers essential workers, which subjects them now to the same kinds of advisories like doctors and first responders. It was likely done to keep schools open because critical workers could continue working even after exposure to a confirmed COVID-19 case, so long as they're not showing symptoms. The American Federation of Teachers says the designation could be used to bully educators, claiming, according to the union's president, that questions why the White House doesn't commit resources to help keep them safe. The Justice Department is asking the Supreme Court to allow President Trump to block his critics on Twitter. Two lower courts ruled that violates the First Amendment because parts of the account serve as a public forum. In today's petition, the Justice Department says the lower courts got it wrong, adding, quote, the president uses his account to speak to the public, not to give members of the public a forum to speak to him, end quote. We're taking a live look now from our Agua Caliente casino cam and send things over to NBC Palm Springs Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett with a quick check of the conditions. Mike.
Sarah, basically what we've been looking at all week long is high heat, which, by the way, I got some good news for you on in just a moment, mixed with that high humidity, just basically creating steam sitting over top of the Coachella Valley tonight. Better than a lot of places. In fact, as we look off towards the southeast, things are going to be very active there. In fact, tracking two tropical systems that could become hurricanes there. Speaking of hurricanes, this is what's left of Genevieve. Genevieve was briefly a Category 3 storm, is now just a tropical storm. But what it will do is continue to walk along Baja and come closer to us. Now, we're not expecting any tropical activity here, but what we will experience is the moisture from that staying over top of Southern California. So as temperatures dial back, in fact, that ridge of high pressure that's been holding us hostage for the better part of a week now is finally breaking down and moving off towards the southeast. The numbers go down, humidity goes up, so it's going to be a bit of a trade-off as we go into the weekend. We'll break it down more coming up in the full forecast. In the meantime, if you looked off towards the west this afternoon, saw some very impressive cumulus clouds tracking one storm cell right now that's just winding down near Hemet. In fact, all of the activity that we saw down towards the Cleveland National Forest in San Diego today is now winding down. There is one aerial flood advisory way out in the high desert, and that's about the only excitement that we've got. Neighborhood weather right now is currently, let's see if we've got it below 110. Yeah, there we are, 109. At the airport. Light breeze coming in from the east. Once again, very stubborn to switch around to the northwest, but we'll do that later this evening. And 27% humidity. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air. Show a little bit of a mixed bag here. Look at this, 106 on Saturday. That's the 30-year average for this time of year, and it's been a while since we've been there. We'll get those overnights into the low 80s, but it looks like it's going to remain humid. Dew points are going to take a run this weekend. We'll take a look at that and your full 7-day coming up.
This is President Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, leaving court after being indicted for defrauding donors with these criminal charges. Bannon is now the 7th Trump associate to have been charged with federal crimes. Jim Acosta has details.
Mr. Trump's re-election chances took another gut punch after his former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, was indicted on charges of defrauding donors to a private effort that raised millions of dollars to fund a border wall. Bannon was arrested on a yacht.
Well, I feel very badly. I haven't been dealing with him for a long period of time, as most of the people in this room know. I think it's a very sad thing for Mr. Bannon.
When asked about Bannon's arrest, Mr. Trump claimed he didn't know anything about the project called We Build the Wall.
I know nothing about the project other than I didn't like, when I read about it, I didn't like it.
But hold on.
It's really the heart of the Trump movement.
Not only was Bannon a key figure behind We Build the Wall, Donald Trump Jr. spoke out in favor of the effort. Another We Build the Wall organizer, former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, said Mr. Trump had given the project his blessing.
I was speaking with the president, and we were talking about a variety of issues. And the topic came up. I mentioned that I was working with We Build the Wall. And he said, "Will you tell the people you are working with that this project has my blessing?"
Just last month, the president told Fox he appreciated Bannon's support.
He says the greatest president ever. I mean, he's saying things that I said, let's keep Steve out there. He's doing a good job.
Bannon is just the latest in a long line of former Trump aides and associates to be indicted or found guilty in court.
What's it say about your judgment that these are the kind of people?
Well, I have no idea.
As for the president downplaying his connection to Bannon, Mr. Trump has used that line before on his former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, once his legal troubles began.
I know Mr. Manafort. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but I know him.
The White House is also dancing around Mr. Trump's comments about QAnon.
I've heard these are people that love our country.
With the press secretary struggling to explain the president's embrace of the fringe movement.
He's talking about his supporters. He believes his supporters are good, hardworking people that love this country.
The president also sounded off on a judge's ruling that Mr. Trump may have to hand over his tax returns to prosecutors in New York.
Nobody has anything. We don't do things wrong.
More headwinds for a president whose aides still refuse to say whether he'll accept the election results.
I don't think the campaign has any doubt that the American people will re-elect Donald Trump and Mike Pence for 4 more years this November.
But it's the mounting challenges from the coronavirus pandemic that continue to weigh down Mr. Trump's re-election chances. Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy is the latest high-profile Republican to test positive for COVID-19, a virus the president keeps saying will disappear.
It's going away. No, it'll go away.
Jim Acosta reporting, and now a Republican group of former national security officials released a statement endorsing Biden. The officials who served under Reagan, Bush, and Trump say the president failed on coronavirus and aligned himself with dictators. Sports is up next. Another MLB team is out after a player tests positive for the virus, and amid the Washington football team changing their name, there are some changes coming to the Kansas City Chiefs. All that and more ahead. Welcome back. Time now for a check on your NBC Palm Springs sports headlines. Following 2 positive coronavirus cases within the organization, the New York Mets have postponed tonight's game against the Marlins in Miami and tomorrow night's game against the New York Yankees. Reports claim one of the Mets' positive cases is a player and the other is a staff member. Although they're not taking any steps as significant as the Washington football team changing its name, the Kansas City Chiefs have also agreed to make some changes after consulting with a Native American leader. The Chiefs announced they will be banning fans from wearing headdresses or face paint that's designed to mimic Native Americans. They're also reviewing whether the arrowhead chop and drumming in the stadium are offensive and need to go. Dramatic new footage emerges of the altercation between Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri and a San Francisco police officer. This happened last year, right after the Raptors' Game 6 victory in the NBA Finals. The video, obtained by CNN, raises questions about a claim by the officer, Deputy Alan Strickland, that Ujiri was the aggressor in the exchange. The officer claims he suffered, quote, physical, mental, emotional, and economic injuries as a result of the incident. Take a look for yourself. The body camera footage shows the incident from Strickland's perspective. You can see Ujiri trying to get to the court and celebrate with his team. He reaches into his jacket to show his credentials. That's when Strickland twice shoves him away, grabbing him by the suit jacket and telling him to back the expletive off. Ujiri then shoves the officer back. The footage is included as part of a countersuit. That does it for sports. Mike has a look at our forecast when we come back. Mike, not too bad for someone who doesn't do sports, right?
It was well done, well done. Here's what we're looking at outside right now. It is hot, it is humid, and it's virtually still out there. We're gonna see if we can get a little bit of a breeze going this weekend. We're gonna see if we can take those temperatures down as well. We'll work on it when we get back. Welcome back. Well, yet another day in August in the Southern California desert. We had heat, we had humidity, and we had some storms that popped up over the mountains. I'll show you the current status of those in a moment, but those ones that did form to our south today basically collapsed and brought some mid-level cloud cover across the region today. This is courtesy of our Walter Clark 111 cam. Let's take a look at what's happening in the big picture. I've got infrared zoomed out here so we can see North America because it really helps tell what's going on here. First, the good news. Ridge of high pressure that we were tracking last night that had that clockwise flow was very easy to identify right over top of Utah there is now breaking down and being pushed a little further off towards the south and east, courtesy of this powerful low that's parallel with British Columbia right now. That will take temperatures down this weekend. That would normally be really good news for us. Problem is this is Genevieve, or what's left of what was Hurricane Genevieve, is now a tropical storm, is going to hug Baja and move closer to us. Now, we will not be seeing any tropical weather out of the deal, but what we will see is some of that mid and level high cloud cover stay in the region through the weekend. So even though we're not going to be as hot, we're going to be humid. Dew points get into the 70s for a couple of days. I'll tell you about that in a moment. We put Futurecast into motion. There's Genevieve, and again, winding down, encountering some cooler water and some wind shear. No tropical worries there whatsoever. Meanwhile, as we look off towards Florida, the next two storm systems look like one could go into the Gulf. Another one could go right over top of Florida as we go into the weekend. We'll keep a close eye on that and give you some updates again tomorrow. Storms that we saw today, in fact, if you looked off towards the west, remember yesterday it was all about the east. Today it was all about the west and down towards the Cleveland National Forest. Saw a couple of storm cells pop up. In fact, there was an aerial flood advisory right near Julian earlier this afternoon. That has been allowed to expire. Cell that popped up in the high desert has now rained itself out. The advisory that was associated with that has now also expired. Speaking of expired warnings, tonight at 10 p.m., we're just under 4 hours away from this thing finally expiring. That's been in place since last Friday. Good riddance. Now, if you're in the Inland Empire or parts of Orange County, the excessive heat warning will stretch into Friday. They've got about another 24 plus hours to go there. Temperatures will continue to stay well above 100 degrees with high humidity into Friday. 109, we managed to keep ourselves below 110 today. We had that going for us, and we got ourselves into the upper 80s, but both of those numbers still well above average. 98 currently in the Yucca Valley, 108 in Coachella, 110 out towards 29 Palms, a lovely low 80s in Big Bear, and currently 85 in Idlewild. Wind will be stubborn again tonight, very similar to what we saw last night. We'll finally make that switch around to the north and west between about 8 and 10 o'clock tonight. We'll get that up to about 15, 20 miles an hour along the I-10 corridor. That'll give us some ventilation, but nothing particularly gusty expected. It's going to take us a while to do it, but we'll get ourselves into double digits after midnight tonight. That'll start us off in the mid to upper 80s on Friday. We will warm to that 109 level again. And look at that, dew points riding in the 70s. Yeah, upper 70s. It's going to be muggy. 109 in Palm Springs and in Indio, 103 in Joshua Tree, and 82 in Big Bear. And this is what we're talking about as far as those dew points go. We'll try and back that off on Sunday and Monday. Otherwise, temperatures will be delightful. Saturday, we'll get right down to the 30-year average, and then high pressure builds again on Monday. We go back above 110 and stay there through Thursday.
Hello, movie buffs! Two big films for you. So let's begin with...
The one and only...
Coming to Disney Plus is this live-action CGI hybrid based on the new Barry Medal-winning children's novel by K.A. Applegate. It is loosely based on the real-life story of Ivan, the lowland gorilla who learned to paint while on public display at a shopping mall in Tacoma, Washington.
You see how important the voices can be.
Providing voice work are Oscar winners including Sam Rockwell as our hero Ivan, Angelina Jolie as Stella the elephant, and Helen Mirren as Snickers the poodle. But my favorite is Danny DeVito as Bob the stray dog.
Is that me?
The humans in the film are portrayed by Bryan Cranston as Mac, the owner of the Big Top Mall where Ivan and friends perform, and the precocious child actress Ariana Greenblatt as Julia, the girl who believes in Ivan.
How about that, huh?
Shades of Dumbo and, yes, Planet of the Apes permeate throughout the film, and parents take note, there's a subplot of death and dying, so be prepared. The one and only Ivan may be slow and laborious for the very young ones, but older kids may find truth and wisdom in Ivan's adventure. And in the end, this existential movie is all about the power of art. Ivan! And for that, the one and only Ivan gets 3 out of 4 Ivan and Friends kisses. And for grown-ups, we have Unhinged. Russell Crowe stars as a mentally unstable stranger terrorizing Rachel and family. Why? Because the poor woman did not apologize during a road rage incident. This simple premise is all you need to know to enjoy the movie. Violence and retribution is at the heart of the film, but this is more than just a road rage movie.
To me, it's a story of two people explosively meeting at the crossroads of their lives.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Director Derek Bort knows how to deliver the thrills, and he's blessed to have good performances, especially from the menacing Crow.
I don't even think you really know what a bad day is.
Unhinged is set to open in theaters nationwide, the first film to do so. Don't worry, the director says it will be safe, but when you go to the theaters,
drive safely.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
You're gonna need it.
And for that, Unhinged gets 3 out of 4 safe drivers kisses. I'm Manny the Movie Guy, and remember, drive safely.
Hundreds of thousands of acres are burning across the state. The California Office of Emergency Services, or Cal OES, is coordinating the state's mutual aid system. It's made up of fire department crews from across the state. It's all challenging during a pandemic.
We are certainly taxed to the very limits right now. Normally, California has the most robust mutual aid system in the country, and that means we're able to pull firefighters from San Diego all the way up to Siskiyou County. But when we're seeing fires literally from the northern parts of the state all the way down to the southern parts, then we can't move them around as much because they're already fighting fires. It's a struggle right now, unlike anything we've seen this year.
Many of inmate fire crews the state relies on are sick with COVID-19, putting more stress on a system already stretched thin. To fill their void, the state's hiring hundreds of seasonal firefighters, training National Guard members as firefighters, and calling on other states for resources. Uber and Lyft are facing an order that would force them to reclassify drivers as full-time employees and not independent contractors. This afternoon, they received an emergency stay to continue operations as is in the state. In November, Californians will vote on Proposition 22. It's sponsored by the rideshare companies, and if passed, it would allow Uber and Lyft drivers to remain as independent contractors.
It is BS, it upsets me, and it's too bad. We should, I have no problem with us being independent contractors.
They did it to themselves because that's why they're breaking the labor laws. It's because they're acting like an employer. What they're doing is collecting all the money and they're issuing it out. Instead of, as taxi cab drivers, we don't do that.
Lyft was prepared to shut down tonight at midnight.
Museums and galleries are currently closed, of course, due to the pandemic. But experts say just looking at art can lift our spirits. So local artists Karen and Tony Baroni have come up with a brilliant solution to experience 26 of their public art installations in 19 locations throughout our valley. They've created a new free app called the Baroni Coachella Valley Art Tour, and you can take it virtually or get in your car for an incredible and socially distanced guided tour.
And it seemed like such the right timing because so many people have so much energy and art is such a part of their life, and they really haven't been able to go to museums, go to galleries. So we decided that we would take our time and dedicate it to putting it in an app, a free app, that anyone can take the tour either on their phone, on their computer, or by actually going to what constitutes 26 works of Karen and Tony Baroni art in the Coachella Valley, starting in Palm Springs and going all the way to Indio.
If you take the entire tour and you stop 10 minutes at each of the 19 locations, it's a 4.5 hour adventure. You could do it over a day or two. In fact, we even halfway point is Aqua, the restaurant where we did the 50-foot sculpture. And so it's planned that you could actually stop midway and have lunch at Aqua and then keep going.
Dance with the rabbits, take selfies, dance with as many of our sculptures as they see. A number of them are on private property, but they're right in front.
What I love about this is that we all know that art inspires and art uplifts and art educates. But of course, with the galleries and museums closed, what a perfect opportunity to be uplifted during this time. And our valley is so beautiful. I had no idea you had 26 sculptures in 19 locations. That's amazing to me.
We didn't either.
I felt the same way.
We didn't either. Palm Desert has been an incredible supporter of the arts, as we know, and they're especially supportive of this. And this is a joint effort for a lot of people, the landlord owners, the people who are renting the property, the city, every aspect. It's a big undertaking. You're going to have people in Paris and Spain and England visiting the Coachella Valley virtually. And you're going to have tourists that are going to be able to come here, and they can't go to the galleries, they can't go to the museum, but they could go on a Coachella Valley art tour.
I'm even thinking for some of the students who are working remotely from home and virtually from home, what a great way for their parents to give them a little art education throughout our valley with this app.
Oh, what a nice thought.
Great thought.
That just gave me the chills. Thank you for thinking that way.
As you know, Sandy, we're very much about public art in public places, and bringing art to everyone, young, old, everyone, and bring art and smiles.
That's for sure. You can access the app by going to baroniart.com. And while you're there, check out Karen's amazing videos that she creates every week. You'll find art and smiles for miles. For NBC Care Silver Linings, I'm Sandy Newton.
Brighter Side of the News is brought to you by Holland RV, located off the I-10 at Washington.
A former Apple engineer says he was assigned to help the government develop a top-secret iPod in 2005. He says it was for the Department of Energy. He's not sure why the government wanted it, but he has a theory that the iPod would be transformed into a stealth Geiger counter. He says a user could subtly check an area for dirty bombs or uranium while appearing to simply enjoy some Gwen Stefani. I'm trying to think what was popular in 2005, like Gwen Stefani. Remember?
Yeah, whatever you would put on an iPod. Hootie and the Blowfish.
That's before 2005, I think. Right?
No,
that was 1997-ish. We're going to get emails about this, and I hope we do. I hope we do. Have a good one. We'll see you back here at 11.